Wonderful. First of all, allow me to quickly thank everyone who is joining our side event. We are very heartened by your interest, and we will make sure, and our speakers will make sure that 1.5 hour you're going to spend with us are going to be absolutely worthwhile. My name is Vladislav Kaim. Together with my colleague from Japan, Jin Tanaka, we are the contact points of the YOUNGO'sGreen Jobs Working Group, who is one of the co-organizers and co-conveners of this side event. And the Green Jobs Working Group of YOUNGO started its work after COP26, recognizing the importance of the need to work on green jobs and just transition within the youth circuit of engagement with the UNFCCC process. And this event is one of the first forays of the Green Jobs Working Group into influencing and shaping wider agenda on green jobs and green skills within the UN and beyond. We are welcoming you very much. And I will later put in the chat the link on how to join the working group and the YOUNGO constituency for those who are not members. And with that, I am passing over to Pooja, who will be our moderator for today's event.
Thanks so much, Vlad. Now, my name is Pooja Tolvawala. I'm based in the suburbs of Philadelphia, but today joining from Washington, D.C. I was here for a friend's engagement party, actually, the other day, which was wonderful. It's awesome to have you all here from all parts of the world. For today's session, we're going to be focusing on the future of the green jobs workforce. And so this event is titled Reflecting, Reimagining, and Reshaping the Future of the Green Workforce. First, we're going to take time to reflect on before COVID and what the green jobs environment looked like. What are green jobs, right? We'll go through all of that. And then for reimagining, we'll discuss different ideas of where we would want the green jobs workspace to go, how to make it more equitable, accessible, what barriers we're facing and trying to access green jobs or financing our own ideas, and then how we can have a better system for bringing about the change that we seek. Then for reshaping the future of the green workforce, which is the third section, we'll talk about solutions that are currently being implemented to reshape the green workforce, what's working, what's not working. And then we'll end with a Q&A where you'll get to ask any questions you'd like to all of our speakers today. For our speakers, we've got Elliot David from Carbon Base, and Maina from Kenya. She's part of the Green Jobs Working Group. Then we've got Meta from the ILO, and we've got Tamara or Tamra, I'm sorry, I do not know how to pronounce your name, from UNDP Generation 17, and Betty from GAIO, the Green Africa Youth Organization. I believe, oh, and Yoko. We've got Yoko as well from the Green Jobs Working Group. So that is everyone, and we're going to get right to the session. And to begin our first session, we've got Meta, we've got Anne and Mustafa, but Mustafa's not here. So Anne, we've got you, and I think you're going to do great. Would you like to share slides or do panel today?
Definitely I can just panel and we can discuss together and they can get questions from the team.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and Elliot and the other speakers, if you have comments in this first section on reflecting, please just raise your hand and I can allow you to speak, or feel free to unmute yourself and answer the questions too alongside Anne. Thank you. So let's begin. Now, the first question I'd like to ask is, who are you? What are you up to, Anne? Tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you so much, Pooja. My name is Anne Maina. I currently live in Nairobi, Kenya, Africa, definitely. And what I'm currently doing is I am working in the conservation field, and also my work revolves around climate change and food security because I got a bachelor's degree in horticulture from the University of Nairobi. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you understand to be green jobs and what green jobs look like where you're based in Kenya?
Yeah, definitely. So green jobs are just jobs in any economic sector, and these are jobs that contribute to the preservation, restoration, and enhancement of environmental qualities. And that is an ILO definition of what green jobs are. And what green jobs really, like a practical example of what green jobs really is maybe somebody working in the financing sector, but in the sustainable financing sector. That's an example of a green job. Another thing could be maybe you're working in engineering, in the engineering sector, and your work is to create maybe machines that are going to reduce greenhouse emission gases. Those are examples of what green jobs really are.
Yes, and I'll just add that in any career that you choose, you can bring this like eco-consciousness and thinking green. So for example, if you're an event organizer, you can think about how to have sustainable products for the food catering, or even having maybe less emission-based foods like vegetarian foods or vegan foods. So that's just another example. Now, I want to ask you about the green jobs area prior to COVID. Would you say that you have access to many green jobs where you are?
Uh, I wouldn't say so. Green jobs in Africa is not actually a concept that is very much embraced by the people here, because you are literally struggling to even get the least the least amount of employment that could really just sustain our livelihoods. So green jobs is not something that people are really more interested in, but people are taking up the sustainability path in their careers, because we've seen so many activists coming from the global south who are championing for sustainability and environmental protection and restoration. And this is a topic that in maybe 5 years from now, we could have so many green jobs created for the people in Africa.
Yeah, so for you, what kinds of support or preparation have been available to you, or what do you see as barriers that you face in accessing either, green jobs or materials, resources to support your own initiatives?
So I'll generally maybe speak about the general employment situation in Africa. So we have the employer's perception and lack of entry-level jobs, where employers really want to employ people who have more experience, and they do not even take the time to try and invest in the young people who are going to be working in these jobs in future. And that is a really big challenge in Africa. And also skills mismatch, where you go to school, you get educated, but you don't get educated in a the curricula does not support other aspects that could be very useful in your practical day-to-day life, such as critical thinking, entrepreneurship, vocational training. And this really brings a challenge. When you even get employed, you will not be able to maybe not function, but let me say function properly in these workspaces. And we also have low quality jobs where, yes, you've educated yourself, you've gotten this, you've struggled so much to get this job, and then finally the amount of pay that you've been contracted to get does not even equal the amount that you're inputting into these jobs. And this really demoralizes the youth and their capabilities to be involved in these workspaces. There's also information asymmetry, where there's lack of information on what really, on the jobs available and the people who are looking for jobs. Because as probably Elliot David might mention to you about the Greenlight Festival, it's trying to bridge the gap between employers who really want these smart people, and we really have those smart people, but these smart people don't have access to information on these job opportunities. So that becomes a challenge in terms of information symmetry. Another thing I'd say is the youth bulge, where we have so many youth competing for the same little opportunities. So you see a job has been advertised today, and then in maybe 2 days, you have over 500 applicants who applied for this job. So you, as a human resource manager or whoever is trying to recruit these individuals, gets overwhelmed because there are so many people who are unemployed, but they're still fighting for these little opportunities that they have access to, not exactly access to, but they know about. I'd also talk about gender, but I'm sure my colleagues will talk more about gender in the following discussion topic. So gender is really a big and wide topic in equality and access to opportunities, because we know so many women lack access to, are not actually considered for these opportunities due to constraining factors such as them catering for their families, and this might actually lead to them not being fully present in these workplaces. But there can be policies that can be made around that to accommodate everybody, because we need so many people in the green jobs to be able to work towards restoration and preservation. So there are solutions to this, so let's not feel discouraged because of what is happening.
Yeah, exactly. I did want to ask you about the impacts of COVID. Like you mentioned some external factors like population rise of the youth population, right? And that contributing to unemployment as well. Now, what have you seen as the impact of COVID on this green jobs marketplace?
Oh, definitely. So before COVID, there was still like the financial crisis that happened in 2008 had really affected everybody globally. So we were trying to recover. But when COVID came, it really took us back a couple of steps, and this really affected people in terms of businesses closing, and this led to so many unemployed people, or even people just being unemployed for long periods of time, because that's different from being unemployment and being unemployed for a long period of time. And the economy was just crashing. And people, sorry, is there an echo? The economy was just crashing, and people did not could barely survive on the little money that they had, and new entrepreneurs could barely access funding to expand or even just set establishments that could create more employment for many other people.
Yes, thank you. Now, I invite you and the other speakers for today to answer the following question. What lessons have we learned to apply in the recovery from COVID as it relates to empowering youth to take effective action through formal and informal work?
Oh, so I think we can forge partnerships with people or countries or organizations that have a better capacity in terms of maybe funding, experience and knowledge, to be able to create more opportunities for the youth, and we can be able to create more employment for these youths. Another thing would be creating policies, because policies are more, the policies determine what is going to happen. Policies determine what is going to happen intrinsically and also outside. So creating policies that are going to create more opportunities for youth and actually have more investment in youth led activities such as entrepreneurship and also mentorship. Just investing in youth and creating policies that are going to favor them into the uptake in this economy. So I'm going to pass it to somebody else to continue.
Sure. Happy to sort of give my thoughts on this question before we get into the sessions later. In terms of what's different now than pre-COVID, I would say there's there's a lot of stuff that's different, but there's two mega trends I think that young people should look to as they're searching for green jobs. One is that, especially in the earlier days of COVID, when all these disruptions kind of threw the world into chaos and companies were kind of scrambling to figure out how to navigate the new world, they noticed that companies that had a sustainability mandate fared much better, right? They were more resilient, they're more sustainable, not just from a sort of green, climate perspective, but also just they were able to bounce back quicker, which also just shows that like companies that think about sustainability are thinking about the long term. It helps them, helps them with their long-term strategy and planning. So companies, like if you're a young person and you're looking at this new green economy, a lot more companies that otherwise were not sustainability are now like, oh wow, we really have to pay attention to this. So there's just more abundance and opportunities out there. There's a greater number of green jobs available for you to sort of check out and apply to. The other mega trend is that obviously COVID kind of threw us into a remote, the future of work has kind of been called into question. And do you have to be physically at an office or physically in a company's country location to work for them? Just as an example, one of the companies that I'm working with, they have team members in, I think, 12 or 13 different countries across 24 time zones, and it works pretty seamlessly, right? Obviously, there's like digital inclusion things to consider, and a lot of the world does not have super high-speed internet, and that's something you have to consider. But in today's green economy, you could find a really cool company that you like, and you can end up working for them, and you don't have to, move to Silicon Valley or, Shenzhen or wherever. So that's another sort of trend that young people should look at.
Thank you so much. Now, I did want to, I forgot the comment that I was going to say based on something that you just said. Maybe it will come back to me. But Elliot, why don't you give a little bit of an introduction of yourself as well while you have the stage?
Should I give like my spiel and slides and stuff, or
no, just a brief intro of who you are. Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, my name is Elliot. I've been working in the climate tech space for close to 10 years now across a lot of different industries, originally in energy, but sort of bounced around from the public, private, nonprofit sector. I'm from New York, US originally. I went to the City University of New York for my undergraduate education, and I went to China, to Tsinghua University for graduate school. But the undergraduate education had a pretty large impact on me in terms of how I think about green jobs. I went to a school that had about 500,000 students, so it's the largest public urban university in America, and a lot of the students come out of the institution wanting to work in impact and climate sustainability. We're the climate generation, and they sort of don't really know where to go. I'm sure a lot of us on the call have had this experience where you're like, man, I want to do something, I'm jazzed up, and I kind of don't know where to put this energy. How do I make a difference? And I'll talk a little bit more later about some of these initiatives that y'all can check out and get involved with. But that's sort of been a guiding light to me in terms of the green job space. And I work for a couple of different climate tech, sustainability tech companies, and I'm also happy to talk about later. And I'll drop my LinkedIn in the chat if anybody wants to reach out to me to learn more.
Yeah, thanks so much. I remembered my comment now. So I like how you mentioned earlier about how companies are trying to go for more of the sustainability framework for their internal structure and external, and even like ESG reporting in their finances. And really, as consumers, as young consumers, with our population being so high as well globally, we have the power to put our money where our mouth is, and really support the organizations that we think are being sustainable. And of course, based on income levels, your money is able to speak to a certain extent, but even when you can't speak with your money, we're able to speak with our voting, and as well as our just raising public awareness in marches and other means. So, and even public audits of companies, right? You can go and give like your scoring of how companies are doing sustainably from your perspective, or you can choose where you want to work or where you don't want to work based on the missions of these different institutions. Now, I want to go to the next section of our webinar today, which is about reimagining. How can we reimagine the future of the green workforce to be one that we want to be part of, right? So for this section, we've got Betty, and we've got Yoko, and we've got Tamara. And please correct me if I'm saying your name incorrectly. So why don't we have Betty introduce yourself first, and then we'll have Yoko to introduce herself, and then Tamara.
Okay, thank you very much, Pooja. So my name is Betty Osai-Bunsu, and I work with the Green Africa Youth Organization as a project coordinator. I'm also part of the C40 Global Youth and Mayors Forum, as well as a pristine member of the Green Jobs Working Group. So thank you. I'll pass it on now.
Yeah, Yoko?
So my name is Yokoru. I am one of the members with the Green Jobs Working Group, and I have been younger for a while. And with Green Jobs Working Group, I have been one of the helpers and planning for this ECOSOC Youth Forum event, and I have been working with other working groups as well. I am also with other youth constituencies and different environmental works. Yeah, that's very brief, but yes. Oh, I'm also the Stockholm Plus 50 Youth Task Force member, where all aspects of environment and future generations is looked upon. And yeah, I mean, yes, that's a very brief introduction.
Yeah, thank you, Yoko. Now, Tamara, please correct me with your name.
No worries. No, you're saying it right.
Okay.
My name is Sarah. It's great to be here from different locations. I am from Jakarta, Indonesia. So a little bit about myself. I co-founded the Birdie Society. We're a social enterprise that sells eco-friendly products, empowering refugees from Middle East. So I'm a part of UNDP Generation 17, initiated by Samsung and UNDP. And I'm excited to be speaking a bit more about integrating women empowerment with the entire green economy.
Thank you so much, all three of you, for being here. And so let's start with you, Tamara. Why don't you tell us from your perspective? This is a very broad question, so you can take it in the direction that you'd like. What could the future of green jobs look like?
Yeah, I can speak probably a little bit more about the gender part of it. I think green economy definitely opened up a new pathways for even ILO published a report that it opens up the way for us to trailblaze, including social economic welfare for the people in that aspect, because sustainability is not just the planet, but it's also about how we pay people fairly. And in that sense, for us who is here, we're thinking about how to do things better to not forget to include the gender equality part, because in my line of work, for example, with refugees already marginalized, and most of them are women that I'm working with, for them to sew, they also have the challenges of being a caretaker for their family first. But then in our mission to make them the breadwinner of the family, because they're the ones who could afford as well with the skills that they have. I think it definitely opened up for I guess low income population to become upskilled, long-term way to become independent individuals. So I think we can reimagine that it can be a more gender inclusive economy in this green jobs. And secondly, why I believe that incorporating gender is so important is because I believe in the saying that when you educate a woman, you're educating a community and you're empowering a community. We've seen how if we trailblaze as a social enterprise or organizations in the different way that we do gender equality and green work, we can work with brands and corporations, just like what Elliot was saying, that we can start moving and creating a new demand and changing the way that companies create supply from the inspiration that comes from our work first. So that's a little bit of what I want to say now, and I'll pass it to the rest.
I actually have a follow-up question. I wanted to ask, as an employer, what are some questions to ask oneself in taking into consideration gender equality in the workplace?
Yeah, in terms of hiring, you got to put on a non-biased gender policy that needs to be vetted by multiple people before they come in. But also in the working environment, you need to ensure that childcare, maternal leaves policies are communicated well so that it doesn't detract people who actually needs and wants to be in the company to leave the company because they don't have these supporting mechanism that is important for them, right? Most of the people that we work with are mothers, and there needs to be a lot of consideration put there. But all to say, I think it's such a worth it investment to invest in the long run, because women provides to be a source of diversity for a company and really making our workplace a warm place and a fun place to work with.
Thanks so much. And for everybody listening in, if you have questions as we go along in our conversation today, please do include them in the chat, and I'll try to incorporate them in the conversation instead of just waiting for the Q&A, since this is that kind of webinar today. Now, I want to go to Betty. From your experience as a young woman in the green job workforce, what do you think has been working well? What things have you seen that you've appreciated about certain workplace environments?
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to start with this. Just some few years back, 6 years ago, when I entered a university, about to enter the university, I got a course called environmental science. And when I informed my parents about it, they told me that, what kind of course is that? It's not a doctor, it's not a physician, it's not a course they know about. That I was on my way to become a waste picker, or what they will call it here, a Zoom lion. That's what Ghanaians call their waste pickers. And I was almost convinced by that statement. Then I decided I'm not going to do that course again. But after a while, I reconvinced myself and I went for that course. Currently, they are amazed and surprised at the great influence or the great effect I'm able to cause in my community and even beyond. So this brings me to our today. We are in the midst of a historic reimagining the future of work. And at the same time, the world faces a potential green skills shortage. So this was me, those days, imagining, will this actually work for me? And I'm so grateful that it actually worked. And now to your question, Pooja, the things that have worked are youth who are able to stand on their 2 feet and say, I think I can cause a change in my environment. I think I can pick up this campaign and it's going to work. I think I can stand for the value I want to see. And those are some of the positive things I'm seeing in our environment nowadays, where women are now taking charge. Ladies, youth are now taking charge. They are entering the green spaces. Just recently, I was speaking to a lady of mine, a co-worker in the office, and I was asking, do we have Muslim ladies in Ghana in the green space? And she was like, oh yes, we have a lot. I can mention their names for you. And she mentioned a lot of names. I went on LinkedIn, I searched for them and I saw them. And I was like, wow, this is very inspiring. And this and more is what we are seeing. The future of green jobs is looking promising now, but it can be better. And it should not be another sugar-coated word, but it will also depend on how we are able to define it today, where we are empowering ourselves and the community and our future to take up the word green job. Not only taking up the word green job, but we would have to have a green economy before we would even have the word green job. So yes, a lot of things are playing positive nowadays, and I'm just hoping it continues. Thank you, Pooja.
Thank you. I like the different points that you mentioned. One about how to start incorporating education around green career pathways while you're in school, so you can learn about the different options and then maybe tailor your coursework around that if you're in higher education, for example. And the other thing that you mentioned was about the cultural considerations, right? Like growing up, how you, similar to how your parents reacted, right? Like I come from an Asian background where, of course, more lucrative careers like in the finance sector or doctor, lawyer, etc., are more admired. And for some reason, you know, parents feel more safety around it and encourage you to pursue those tracks rather than something in social impact and the humanities. And so that's another thing that is another challenge to face, right? In pursuing this and learning to not feel guilty in choosing this path and having the confidence in yourself that good will come when you're focused and dedicated. And even though there's uncertainty now for yourself, for your parents, caretakers, that, you know, you got to trust that you can get there or learn how to get there and things will get better. I'm glad you highlighted this. Now, I want to go to Yoko. Yoko, from your perspective, what do you think the future of green jobs could look like?
So for the future, because there's much more youth involvement in sustainable science and all those sustainable activities. So the youth, because youth is more engaged and they're like unlike 10 years ago, there's more of these youth organizations and constituencies more recognized, and youth are become more aware. And so as the previous speaker has mentioned, the economy has to be more green, and that's the first step for green jobs, as Amanda has mentioned. And so the youth now, it's more known to the green jobs, and green jobs is also like more well known in both global South and global North countries. And so in a way, the youth in the global North will know about how the people are like in the global South are acting, and how global North can help those in need, and how the green jobs will be transitioning. And there's also like as more green job opportunities like job board, bulletin board, how the youth from across the world are connected. And there's definitely more opportunities and chances than ever before. So for the future, I always say that as long as the youth care about climate change, about like environment, even like as Pooja has mentioned, that Asians are really more for like doctor, like engineering, all those like finance. like, I mean, they're all technically, like they're all technical in science, but they can also be green jobs as long as they're more like leaning towards environmental science or like green jobs. But I would say the main improvement would be really to look at the educational system and how like they can really include green jobs and really leaning towards the sustainable development goals and future development. And that's how I would say the students will be more recognized to green jobs, and they can think more about the environment in how the jobs can impact on the environment.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I like that you mentioned how, there's some transformations that we would need to see in the educational system for incorporating this green thinking in any job that's chosen. I want to go back to Tamara and ask you the same question of how can we redesign new and existing jobs to be green jobs or encourage and include eco-conscious thinking in any job?
That's a great question. I think it starts with, for sure, something small, being an entrepreneur for those who are working in a company, and starting with bringing your own bottle. And I love what you said in the beginning, bringing to the point of putting your money where your mouth is, to be that, setting that example first. But then when we start talking about for us to create opportunities in the space, I like the saying where you just have a newspaper in one hand, being very mindful of what's happening in the world and what the world needs, contextualizing that to the other hand, speaking and talking to people, because a bulk of the work of how we started as a company too starts with talking to people and seeing what they first need. And then you'll begin to see what exactly is the need and what solutions that you bring. Yes, we can dream about the amazing thing that people are doing in Malaysia or Hong Kong, the Philippines, and whatnot. But then if we really just take a look at, even, I want to highlight this case by in the research as well, in the Grameen Shakti Microloans Initiative in Bangladesh, right? I think this is such an amazing pillar case study where women participation in greening the energy sector. The initiative of microloans were to install 100,000 solar home systems in rural communities and has trained over 5,000 women as solar technicians and maintenance workers. So I think it's so exciting to take a look at the environmental issues and combining that with who are the workers, especially the marginalized communities and the communities surrounding in need that can be mobilized. And then in terms of the capital, I think as young people, we do have a voice to be able to convince and really bring the fire for these people, CSR, ESG funds who are looking to fund initiatives, but then they don't necessarily know because they don't hear about the initiatives that are going on the ground. So that's a little bit of encouragement there, because I think it's just a great case study.
Thanks so much. Now, Betty, I want to go back to you and ask you, as a current employee or existing employee of an organization, what are some ways to redesign this green jobs workforce or encourage certain considerations from the inside as an employee?
Okay, thank you very much. So on this, we have to make people see the relevance of going green or even having the green skill. From being a youth in the university or being in the classroom, we have to put in systems where students are able to understand what some courses are and what it is to actually go green. And if we actually want to go green, we have to inculcate that aspect where we start introducing more green courses into students' life. I think that's going to help. And we also have to start redesigning and incentivizing higher wages for green jobs. If we want people to actually go into this particular system, we have to make it lucrative. We have to set higher quality and uniform certification programs where people want to go and learn what it is to have a green skill. An example is what Green Africa Youth Organization is doing in Ghana, where in every university, we've established eco clubs. These eco clubs, we are providing the platform to have that connection between themselves and the community through projects. We build their capacity on going green, alternative jobs and livelihoods, what it means to actually become an ecopreneur. We provide them the platform within our organization to intern, to do their national service, so that they understand even whilst in school, before leaving school. And these are some of the opportunities that it's not available. And I think if we start redesigning our existing systems to suit this path, we could start leaning towards a more sustainable green job skill provision. And apart from that too, we should also start educating the community. An example is I did a sensitization where I brought together over 150 people together. We entered the community, teaching the community on segregation and the importance of circular economy and the role and importance of waste workers. I was speaking to a student and I asked them, can anyone give me another name to be given to a waste worker? Or should I say a Zoom lion or a waste picker, because they don't see them of relevance. After explaining everything I had to explain to them, and the small boy raised up his hand and he said, okay, they are waste managers. And I said, wow, this is how we can actually create that kind of system we want to see, where people's jobs are dignified, where people don't have to see their job as so below the rank or so below the line or outcasts in the system, but they see their job to be of relevance. And that was how I felt when going to school. My parents told me not to do my course, but successfully I finished, and now it's just so amazing the kind of impact I'm creating in my community. So I think this is how we can create that kind of, or redesign that set of skills in going green that we want to see. Thank you, Pooja.
Thank you, Betty. And I wanted you to take like a few seconds to share about your YouTube channel real quick.
Okay, thank you. This boils down to being an entrepreneur. I've always been advocating for individuals to go into entrepreneurship. However, taking that mantle has not been easy on my end. I started a YouTube channel the beginning of this year called Be Inspired with Stories from Africa. During the course of the webinar, I'll drop the link on the chat. You can all do well to subscribe to the channel. This channel provides the platform for sharing stories in Africa in relation to values, passion, and environment. For the past month now, I've just been releasing a lot of episodes, and I will tell you, since you're in this space, if you go check it out, I'm sure you would be inspired by them, because it's all about hearing the stories from the communities, their mouth, what they think about whatever is going about in their environment and how they can propose solution. I've always been saying this, it's not about always complaining about the system, but what solution are you bringing on board? What solution as a youth or as an individual are you recommending? It's not just about talking. And lastly, the solution of one man cannot be the solution of another. We should stop defining that system where we have to look at the global north or to define what we actually want. We have to define what we want using our available resources, using our locally indigenous materials or resources. We have to create that solution we want. And this and many more is about the YouTube channel. Thank you very much, Pooja.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I think you and Tamara both highlighted this point, right? Even if there are examples that we can look to see what can be implemented in our area, you'll still have to tweak and adapt the models to fit your circumstances, your resources. So there's still definitely a benefit in information sharing across the world, but keeping in mind that what might work in one place may not exactly work in another, and there will need to be some adjustments. But there's definitely this benefit of partnerships and learning from each other. And I did want to highlight, so I have this podcast coming out called Dare to Envision, and this is also another storytelling platform. Basically, you'll get to hear from young leaders who have pursued green jobs or are working in service to environment and people, and about their journeys and what they've envisioned for better systems and the steps that they're taking to get there. So that's just going to be on youthcc.org. But now I want to thank the speakers for this section. Thank you so much for sharing with us your vision for a different system of green jobs and bringing green thinking in, and how to make the workplace more equitable for people and accessible for people from all different backgrounds and with varying identities, whether it's gender identity or nationality, age, etc. Thank you all so much. Now I'm going to introduce the speakers of the last section before Q&A. That's Meta from ILO, the International Labor Organization, as well as Elliot David, who spoke briefly before, who's from Carbon Base. And first, I would like to give Meta the floor to also talk about the Climate Academy that they've got coming up. And what was the other thing I was going to say? I don't remember, but I'll remember. Why don't you two introduce yourselves? Well, Elliot, you already have. So Meta, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Thanks, Pooja. Happy to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Mette from the ILO. I work with the ILO and the Green Jobs team. And I took note that everyone also sort of explained what they had done before they ended up in this position. So, I mean, maybe some of you would find it interesting how I ended up in this green job that I have. So I'm Danish, I'm from Denmark originally, and I studied at a business school. And there I, amongst many other things, I mean, we learned all the traditional things such as accounting and macro and microeconomics and corporate finance, etc. But there was a huge focus on sustainability and the role of business in creating a sustainable future and society. And this was really my huge passion, right? I thought this was really, really important. I mean, businesses and the economy to a large extent has been a large contributor to the problem that we have in terms of climate change. And that could also be the solution to the problem. And that's what I also chose to focus my master's degree on, where I got a master's in business and development studies. So how businesses also can operate sustainably, the whole value chain aspect of it, and many things like that. And while I was studying, I had a student job on the side to fund my studies and all those things. And I mean, I started as a barista and working in a cafe like most people do. And then eventually, as I got through my bachelor's degree, I got more study relevant jobs, as we call it in Denmark. So I joined and started working on sustainable business development in the employers organization in Denmark. So the largest employers organization in Denmark. That is very important, and I'll come back to that because that basically is probably how I ended up in the ILO and the very special UN agency that the ILO is. So an employers organization, as some of you probably know, they are sort of the counterpart to the labor union, and they play a very important role in society in terms of formalization of the economy. And as I said, they were also really trailblazers and front runners in terms of pushing and supporting green business development in the SME sector, supporting the large companies, etc. And there I worked on development projects, primarily in the Middle East and North Africa, and a bit in the Gulf countries as well, on economic diversification, etc. And that is how I ended up in the ILO 1 year ago. A little more than a year ago, I joined the Green Jobs team, and the ILO is the UN specialized agency for the world of work. And it is quite unique in the sense that just like any other UN agency, we have government members, but on top of that, we also have workers and employers, constituents, as we call them, members of the organization. And that means that, in my opinion, the ILO is a very impressive democratic organization, because governments have to agree by consensus with employers and workers from all over the world. And basically they they set labor standards and conventions and provide guidance to labor ministers, to governments, but also to employers and workers. And amongst other things, we support them in the green transition. And I'm super happy to hear that so many of the speakers today have already been referencing some of the ILO work. And I'll be happy to talk more about it, because I know that one of the topics of today's sessions was going to be just transition, which is obviously a core element of the work and the way that the ILO looks at climate action. Because for us, it's really important that we have ambitious climate action, but it also must support social justice. And we must ensure that no one is left behind, and that we don't create unforeseen and unintended negative effects from the green transition. And then, Pooja, I'll put a link to the Green Academy, because I think that might be easier, but I'll be happy to talk about it later when we talk about different strategies to creating green jobs and a just transition. Thanks.
Wonderful. I'm kind of distracted by the little baby on the screen right now. Very cute. That's the future of our workforce right there. Now, Elliot, I did want to, before we do run out of time and go into Q&A, give you the space to talk about the Greenlight Festival. For everyone who is unaware of this, it is one example of a solution, a youth-led solution to increasing education about green jobs, as well as forming the necessary connections and, well, the space to network and connect to have the access to these green workplaces.
Yeah, sure. I can just kind of hop right in. I know we're short on time, so maybe I won't share slides, but just I guess a couple of things I did want to comment on, and everybody's been so great so far. I'm really enjoying the session. I'm really glad that everybody in the audience is getting the opportunity to hear from some of the amazing speakers and some of these amazing initiatives. Like, definitely make sure you're writing them all down. You check them all out. Really quickly, before I go into the Greenlight Festival, some of these initiatives I'm working on, one thing I would like to say is just on the notion of green jobs. I know this has sort of been alluded to before, but just to reemphasize, I would say that there's like two types of green jobs more broadly. There's the, like, any job can be a climate job. So you can be any organization, any company, nonprofit, government, whatever, in the entire world. And like, even if you're not working on sustainability or climate, like, you can bring green economy into the workforce, into the workspace. So don't be discouraged, if you don't have an environmental science degree and you're not a computer programmer or whatever. And then the other sort of category of green jobs is folks that are specifically working on climate, sustainability, the environment. The way I like to think about it is they're working within the green economy. So that could be on climate, environment, that can be on sort of climate justice, that could be really on anything related to this broad concept of the green economy. And also, just to Anne's really earlier point, which I thought was really well put, is that there's kind of this like proactive side of the green economy that's like the entrepreneurship, companies that are doing the stuff. And then there's also this like defensive notion of the green economy. It's like, how do you, not everybody can afford to, I don't know, build a climate tech startup. Some folks are just trying to do what they can to get through the day. And that's sort of an even greater environmental justice challenge. How do you incorporate sustainability into that? Right. It's not fair to have people that are doing that, sort of doing their best to make it, to also have to think about that as well. It's an interesting question that, we should all sort of be posing to ourselves. But yeah, really quickly about me, I work for like 9 different climate tech related organizations. So, feel free to check them all out. If you're looking for jobs, we're hiring, happy to, chat about that. But just to talk a little bit about the Greenlight Festival, just because Pooja mentioned it. Last year, we basically recognized that as an, Carbon-Based, as an organization that works with hundreds, if not thousands of climate tech, sustainability organizations, in a lot of our conversations with them, they always seem to say, where are all the smart, diverse young people that want to work in the green economy? And y'all on the call are probably like, what the heck? I'm right here. I want to work. And so this mismatch, we see it as a climate justice issue where often the folks that work in climate are sort of straight white dudes that look like me, and not really representative of what the green workforce should look like, both from an ethical perspective, but also from a practical perspective. Some of you guys on the call that might be coming from environmental justice communities probably are frustrated when somebody comes in and says, hey, this is a solution for you, rather than you emanating from the community. This is something that I think would work best. So, the best way to predict the future is to shape it, make sure that you're emphasizing that and, sort of joining the climate solutions that work best. So we recognize this issue, right? This mismatch of young people and the different climate tech organizations that are building really, really cool solutions. And I know we can talk for hours about that. So we set up this Greenlight Festival last year. It was basically a pilot project to focus on public university students in New York, predominantly first generation, college students, first generation Americans, basically connecting them with all of these different companies and speakers and folks that you might want to engage with and network with. Imagine like a really big green jobs fair. And it went really well. We had some incredible speakers like the US EPA administrator, who's sort of like the senior environmental figure. We had one of the authors of the UN SDGs come and speak. We had some mayoral candidates. Secretary Hillary Clinton was sort of a big fan. And we basically realized, we really kind of hit the problem on the button. And so this year, for anybody that would like to be involved, we are planning on organizing this event again. It will be the largest green climate jobs event in the history of the world. The goal is to have at least 1 million youth attendees. So sounds like a lot. It is a lot. We already have some pretty phenomenal speakers lined up, some really amazing companies that would like to be involved. If you'd like to be an organizer, please reach out to me. We'll be sort of kicking it into gear over the course of the next 6 months. Yeah, and I think I'm out of time, but I'll share my info again in the chat if folks would like to learn more. But yeah, please take it away, Pooja.
Thank you. I will ask you both a question each, but before I do that, for everybody who's tuned in today, we are going to take a picture real quick before people drop. And if you all could turn on your cameras, I believe Anne will take the picture. And if somebody, okay, never mind. Anne will not be taking the picture. She did not see my chat. Betty, are you able to take the picture? Yes. Okay, perfect. So we'll have Betty take the picture. And so yeah, if everybody can smile, we'll take it in 5, 4, 3. Or actually, we'll take it when Betty's ready. Betty, you tell us when you're ready. You're on mute, Betty. You're still on mute.
Try again.
I hope I'm on.
Yeah, you're on. You're on.
Okay, let's take it again. Sorry.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Betty.
Can we smile now? 1, 2, 3. Go. Okay. I also had to take myself, so I had to smile. I've taken it. I think you all look good.
And did you get the second page as well?
Okay, I think I have a broad, okay, let me just take another from the second page, but I have a very broad screen, so.
Okay.
Okay, let me take the other page. Okay, so please, we have quite a number of people without their videos on the second page.
That's okay. We can
That's
just
okay?
take it, whoever's there, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so please let's smile again. Awesome, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Just gonna give a shout out to Julia. Hi, it's been a minute. Okay, thank you all. Now we're gonna. Sorry, I accidentally muted myself. Okay, now we're gonna go back to the questions. And if you all have any questions for our speakers, please begin typing them in the chat because I'm just gonna start asking them as we go. So please type them in the chat. And that's how we will ask today for the interest of time. We will not be doing like raise hand. Now, going back to Meta and Elliot, what I wanted to ask, can you both give one example of a solution that you think has worked well for increasing access and equality to green jobs workforce? And not just for young people, right? So this is for just in general.
Yeah, I can go ahead if you want. All right, so I mean, this is very complex, right? Because you can support the green transition in so many different ways, and there are many different entry points. So, I mean, we've already talked about skills, reskilling, improving the education system, and Mina mentioned basically employable skills, ensuring that the things that we learn in school is what companies and employers need. We also talked about business development, entrepreneurship, greening the business as an employee, all those things. I mean, there are so many different ways of strengthening and growing the green jobs base, so to speak. But I would probably add something else. We did talk a little bit about policies earlier today, and I'll probably grab that hook. So as many of you probably know, if you follow the COP proceedings, one of the sort of key tools that the countries have are the NDCs, the nationally determined contributions. And they are basically the plans that countries make for decarbonization. And I think this is a very interesting place to address jobs and social justice, because what we see is that most of these NDCs, they address very strongly decarbonization, of course, and they have net zero targets and plans for how to meet those by 2050 or whenever they set those targets. But it's not that many of them that include jobs aspects, skills, youth, all those like social protection, occupational health and safety, and all those elements that are really important in terms of creating decent jobs. So I think if I could highlight one thing that countries and also NGOs and social partners, so again, workers and employers organizations, could really work with, would be to include this social dimension in the NDCs. So you asked for an example, and South Africa is a really impressive example in terms of their nationally determined contributions. It's a long document, so it's perhaps not something that everyone just kind of reads for fun, but it is very impressive. The NDCs, they explicitly mention just transition, and I didn't really have the time to explain it, but basically just transition kind of is the concept that encapsulates all those things that we have talked about today.
Meta, go ahead and explain just transition.
All right. Okay, I'll be happy to. So just transition is really coupling the ambitious climate action together with the social justice and employment aspects. So the decent work agenda. And in the ILO, we have the Just Transition Guidelines. They are from 2015, and they specifically outline 9 different policy areas. I won't go into them, but I can put a link to them and you can have a look. But basically those guidelines serve as a framework for governments, employers and workers organizations on how to address climate change. And they are a really useful tool, for example, for countries developing their NDCs, right? So South Africa, which is the example I'm giving, has incorporated just transition. They are specifically addressing decent work. They're explicitly mentioning skilling and reskilling. They are specifically mentioning social protection, which is really important, perhaps not so much for young people, but especially for the workers that will be displaced. And that basically, might as well be young people entering the labor market as older workers that are perhaps leaving the labor market. So there are so many levels of this, and I think that South Africa has done a really good job at incorporating the social dimension of climate action. And it's perhaps something that is perhaps an area of intervention that we haven't touched that much upon today. But I'll be happy to talk about entrepreneurship and skills as well. I have some cool examples there, but I'll pause for now with the NDC example. Thanks.
Yeah, and now, Elliot, I'm going to skip you on that question. We're going to go to any of the speakers if you'd like to answer this question, which rolls off what Meta just explained. It says, how best can we mainstream young people in green jobs programs and the transition? And to this, I'll add, what are some skills that you think that young people have an advantage at that can also be utilized in this space? And that can be for any of the speakers, so please just unmute yourself and go for it. And this question was from Shamiso. Yeah.
Okay, just a quick one from my end. With respect to what are some of the skills that young people have nowadays, and they could inculcate that into green jobs. An example is that digital skill that most of us, we weren't trained on how to go on social media. Most of us, we weren't trained on doing that, but you have a lot of youth utilizing this space. However, what are they utilizing it for? That's the problem. Most of them just go on this space and, sorry to say, and create like crazy content all about fooling and all about laughter, but they could make that particular platform engaging. They could make that platform more inspirational or more educative. And an example is the platform I created, BISA. I have that green skill. So what do? I locate my connections. So I don't only do stories in Ghana because I'm from Ghana, but through my connections, I'm able to tap and do stories across Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, Malawi, Uganda, Nigeria. And those are some of the things that young people of nowadays could tap in and create more educative content than just normal content. One man told me that the people that have the knowledge nowadays are more quiet, and those that do not have a lot of things to say are the ones talking. That's just something to us all. Thank you, Pooja.
Thank you. And Meta, before I go back to you, I'm just going to incorporate this question and give Anne the mic again. So the question is, how can we involve young people in green job creation, especially in African rural regions, experiencing the impacts of security challenges due to lack of both finance and skill acquisition? And that I'm going to go to Anne. Oh, maybe Anne dropped by accident. Okay, so maybe Meta, I'll go back to you.
Sure, I think I can perhaps wrap my comment to both of those points. I think, so first of all, ILO data suggests that if we successfully transition and support green energy, sustainable energy sources, and a circular economy, we can create up towards 100 million jobs by 2030. So, I mean, there's a huge job potential in the green transition. So we just have to make sure that, as I mentioned before, no one is left behind. And those 100 million jobs, they are dependent on skills and reskilling. And Betty, you mentioned this a little bit, and in the ILO, we distinguish between sort of core skills and hard skills. So one thing is being a high voltage electrical engineer, but another thing is those core skills, the soft skills that you mentioned, Betty, which is, for example, digital skills. And I think sometimes, especially us young people, many things we learn or know are so intrinsic in us that we don't even know that it's a strength or an advantage. So I think so I think we have to remember that many of those skills that young people come with to the workplace are really desirable. And those include project management, digital skills, teamwork, cultural understanding, many of those things. And those were actually concrete skills that this report highlighted that will be needed in the new green economy. So that I just wanted to mention. And then I think I have perhaps more of a personal opinion to the second point, which would be how can we bring young people into spaces and supporting this transition? And I think, in my personal opinion, I think we should consider where we as young people have a sphere of influence or sphere of power. So you might have, as Betty mentioned, your local community that you can influence, but you might also have positions of power that you don't necessarily consider. It can be your student council. It can be in your the building you live in, or in the sports club that you're a trainer in, or what do I know. So even though you're young, you have plenty of arenas that you can navigate in. And in terms of the sphere of influence, I think this one is really important. And I'll circle it back to the social partners, because one thing is influencing your governments or your local government or your national government. But if you as a young worker or a member of, for example, a workers' organization or a labor union, then you can also influence the labor union in becoming even a stronger advocate for green jobs. And in that sense, you will be able to influence the workplace and the economy and the society as a whole. So I think sometimes those aspects of society are perhaps forgotten or taken for granted. And it's nice to try to reflect upon where is it that I have a sphere of influence or a sphere of power that I can use in order to create a green, equitable society where everyone is on board for the transition. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And for the person who asked the question about Africa, I see that Elliot has put a nice resource in the chat, so please do check that out. And Betty, there's a question for you in the chat, so if you could answer that via chat, that would be great. Now, the last one let me give Yoko the floor real quick. You've had your hand up for a while. Yoko, go ahead.
So I was going to answer about the skills that require green jobs really quickly as well. So as it was mentioned that it's very important to have digital access and digital in this, in the past, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, there was no really all this technology. So in the future, it will be really bright future for the young people, and the skill will be much better, much more improved than before, because all this technology, we don't have them before, as they're always improving. So as young people today, the skills for green jobs, they really need to, as mentioned before, use the digital platform right, and really engage other people to be part of the dialogue and be really interactive, so that everyone, including those from the global south and global north, even can be connected, so that they can understand from each other, like from each person's experience and how it's really like in their country and their like local community. So it's all about like really inclusion and the cultural balance and really how we can understand each other. It's how really we need to balance by using the technological aspect and also like social, environmental, economic aspect. Everything's combined, like through the interactions. That's kind of my idea on this one. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you so much. So we have some closing remarks from Vlad, but before that, I do not want to ignore the questions of Ikao. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. So if Elliot or Anne, we've got Anne back, and if you would like to answer the questions from Ikao, that would be great. One question is about greenwashing and how do we make sure that corporations don't just label a job as a green job without the actual intention and work behind it. And then how does the great resignation, employees voluntarily quitting their jobs, right? There's a lot of talk around this right now, affect efforts to promote green jobs and a just transition. The last one is how do we ensure that moving forward with solving the unemployment crisis facing the labor market within the global South, we factor in a complete restructure of the labor market. So I think the last two can definitely be combined. And the first one is just about avoiding greenwashing. Yeah, Elliot or Anne, if you would like to answer that part real quick, and then we'll go to Vlad.
Yeah, maybe if it's okay, I could just jump in real quick just because I do have to run. I was reading those questions in the chat. They're all fantastic, and we should probably devote like a whole hour to each of them.
Yeah.
But just really quickly, a few thoughts on the greenwashing side. I think one of the skills that some of the folks, some of the panelists have mentioned is, I think, millennials, Gen Z, I think we have a much better, we're recording, right? BS meter than previous generations to avoid saying anything incendiary. But I think we are able to recognize a lot more, what something is, not just what it looks like. And I would say if a company, I don't know, if there's a company that has a bad history of doing really terrible stuff and they're offering you a job, or if they have a team that looks really interesting, do your research, make sure that, you know what you're getting yourself into. There are companies, of course, that are doing this. Greenwashing is a huge, huge problem. I would say just, yeah, if the information is not fully available, if you're uncertain, then, the green economy is a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. There are plenty of opportunities out there. On the great resignation, phenomenal question. I think about this all the time. I think that it's going to accelerate like the sort of green economy transition, because at the end of the day, what most economists fail to understand is that businesses don't create jobs, but consumers create jobs. And as consumers, each one of us has certain values that we align with, and therefore we sort of take those to work with us. So I think that's an excellent question and really interesting to sort of look at the years ahead. And then in terms of the global South, again, there's that adage that the value of any solution is directly related to the cost of the problem. Human planetary survival is a pretty big problem, so naturally the opportunities out there are just massive. The question is, how do you unlock those? How do you sort of switch on and off the levers? I think everything that Mete and Betty and Anne and Beatrice and Yoko, everything that they were saying are all great solutions to that. But with that, I have to run, but great session.
Thank you, Elliot. Anne, did you want to share anything, or should we go straight to Vlad? Okay, maybe Vlad, why don't you just go ahead and with the concluding remarks.
Thank you, Pooja. What an amazing space we have had. Thank you, everyone, for dedicating your time to this, whether you are facilitator, speaker, or a participant at the event who has come just to hear more and to gather some ideas for partnerships or projects that you might have with regards to the field of green jobs. At any rate, thank you so much on behalf of our Green Jobs Working Group, on behalf of YOUNGO, on behalf of our partners who have helped us to coordinate this event, for making this possible. We are going to make sure that in this year, 2022, and at COP27, green jobs as a topic and the necessity of demanding more green jobs, for decent green jobs for youth, is something that we hold up high on the agenda. And we are encouraging, I have already posted the links, for those of you who are interested in taking this fight together with us, to join both YOUNGO in case you haven't already done that, and the Green Jobs Working Group itself. Any one of you who would like to do many more and amazing common things with regards to the field of the green jobs with us, you are very welcome to do that. We are publicly available to reach out, and do not hesitate to contact us. Thank you so much again. Special thanks to the colleagues who were moderating and speaking today. And we hope to see you at other occasions with us in the near future. Have a good time of the day wherever you are.
Thank you, everyone.